Good morning. Hi. My name is Emily Quarles-Mowrer, and I'd like to welcome you all to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Pottstown. Welcome to all of those who are joining us here in the sanctuary this morning, and welcome to anyone who is joining us online or via time delay on YouTube. With all the choices we have for our time, not just Sunday mornings, but all the time, I'm so glad you chose to be with us. This morning, we have music played by the lovely Carla Michelle. Thank you so much. And we have technology done by Rick Dusky. Also, thank you so much. For 50 years, over 50 years, the UUFP has been a liberal religious voice in the Pottstown area. As UUs, we believe that we can have our facts and our faith, and we can eat it too. We believe that we can and should acknowledge the wisdom of the past, even as we explore our way into the future. We believe that we honor the past by learning about it and learning from it. We believe that there are still plenty of questions out there to explore. And most importantly, we believe that everyone is inside the circle of justice and compassion. So we hope your spirit and your heart and your mind are refreshed as we once again commit ourselves to our 7 guiding principles. We come together on Sunday mornings, not because we share a creed, but because we share a promise to support one another on our spiritual journey. Our services are different each week, but the loving kindness that we offer one another here is the same. So whoever you are, wherever you come from, whoever you love, we are so glad you chose to be with us today. Now we have a moment for announcements. If anyone has an announcement, please feel free to come up to the front and use one of the microphones.
Hi, everybody. I'm Clifford, and I'm going to do another fundraiser cooking demonstration. This time on fresh pasta. We're going to make 2 different kinds of doughs, cut 3 different ways, 3 different sauces. Also a gluten-free version that's going to be made with finely ground corn flour. So anyone who is gluten intolerant, you know, you can come and learn how to make gluten-free pasta and eat all of it you want. It's a fundraiser. It'll happen on Saturday, June 15th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I think 4 hours ought to give us a chance. Also, I'm gonna have the group break into teams, and each team can make a little batch of pasta on their own, so they can really get their hands in and feel how it's supposed to come together. Just register at member services at uupottstown.org, and the deadline for registration is Saturday, June 8th. And attendance is limited to just 18, so we can all kind of get our hands into the mix. And there's already 4 people signed up, so please come.
Morning, I'm Miranda. We're offering today a 102, that's a class for people who want to be members. It's also for people who just want to find out more about UUism, but you don't see any movies here, so we may not offer it, because if we don't have anybody, we won't do it. But so thank you. I'll watch for movies.
Those of you that have enjoyed Reverend Kim's services, we have a card. Her last service will be June 2nd. So for the next 2 Sundays, we'll have the card out in the social hall afterwards at coffee hour and potluck for people to sign. Thank you, Kurt.
Morning, I'm Valerie. The next meeting of the Shaw Ministry will be Saturday, June 1st, which is Saturday after next here at 10 a.m. I will bring treats and make coffee if there's people. So anyone who loves to knit or crochet or would like to learn, I am a good teacher, just saying. I hope you come join me. Thank you.
I'm Kay. I just want to ask that anybody that helped out yesterday with the cleanup, please stay right after the service. We're taking another picture because It's like a before and after. Rain drenched and looking Sunday best. So anyway, everybody, kids, everybody, please stay. We're just gonna take a quick picture. Thanks.
Hey, thank you, everyone. And now it's time to light the chalice. Sarah, would you like to come up and light the chalice? We light our chalice this morning with words from the Oberlin UU Fellowship. We light this chalice to find inner peace, love for each other, and faith in ourselves. Also to be welcoming to whomever we meet and kind to all living creatures. So let's gather around this light of hope as we share this time together. And now it's time for our weekly reminder that even as technology can help us draw the world closer together, when we're all coming together in one place, a description from what we're doing here in this room. So now is the time in our service where I ask everyone to put your phone into worship mode and close your eyes. Feel the weight of your body in your chair. Feel your feet connecting to the earth. Feel the air coming into your lungs. Hear the sounds of us being together. For an opening this morning, we have words by Lucinda S. Duncan. God of life and beauty, we pray for the quietness of snowflakes, knowing that love is quiet. We pray for the kindness of small acts, knowing gentleness is fragile. We are grateful to know that thoughtfulness makes no sound, but compassion leaves wonderfully beautiful traces when we open ourselves to wonder. May ours be a religion which, like the snowflake, goes everywhere in quietness, in love, and with gentle regard for that which is true and beautiful in us and about us. We'll join in singing hymn number 300 with heart and mind.
knows what she wants, right? So today's story is how to grow a friend. To grow a friend. First, plant a seed in good soil. A friend needs water, warm sunshine, and space to bloom. To grow a friend, talk and listen. It doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes a friend bugs you. To grow a friend, chase the bugs away together. And don't let your friends get stuck in the weeds. If a friend is drooping, do something sweet. Good friends stand by each other in rain or shine. Good friends make things brighter. To grow a garden of friends, remember that new buds can sprout in surprising places. And there is always room for more.
It's amazing how fast they grow. Now is the time in our service where we pause for our morning offering. Victoria Weinstein reminds us that the purpose of church is to encourage all who gather here to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the vine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting church and its many ministries. The gifts of the congregation will be most gratefully received. So much for the morning offering given in the spirit of generosity and received with gratitude and love. So this morning I have two readings, both from Braver Wiser, because I couldn't choose which one I wanted more. The first one is Be a Blessing by Leslie Butler. She starts with a Maya Angelou quote. The thing to do, it seems to me, is to prepare yourself so you can be a rainbow in somebody else's cloud. Somebody who may not look like you, may not call God the same name you call God, if they call God at all. I may not dance your dances or speak your language, but be a blessing to somebody. Look up, look around. I'd gotten in the habit of keeping my head down when running errands, stuck in my own dark cloud, closed off, hardly noticing where I was or who was around me. But on this day, I decided to greet the world differently. I stopped for gas and started filling up when I noticed a man several rows down. His car was old and packed with junk. So what?
He had all work clothes on and looked to be in his 20s. Again, so what? All I did was look at him. And although there were other people around, he came over to me, said hello, and tried to explain something to me in half English, half Spanish. I finally understood that he had to get somewhere and needed directions. No problem, except I didn't speak Spanish. He pulled out his cell phone and punched in a number and handed me his phone. Hello, I said. The voice on the other end told me that her son had just driven straight through from another state, had only 45 minutes to get to a job in another town, and didn't know which direction to go. Did I have any kids, she asked. Well, I have sons too. Mom to mom, I explained to her where he should go, and she looked it up on Google Maps, and together we came up with the best plan to avoid rush hour traffic and get him out to his job without a minute to spare. I gave the phone back to the young man, and his mother gave him directions in Spanish while I pointed in the right direction. Then he handed his phone back to me. What's your name? His mother asked. She said she wanted to thank me by name for helping her son. I'm sure the mother and son from Texas had forgotten about this day long ago, but the named blessing that I gratefully accepted that day has long stayed with me, a reminder of the simple act of looking up with an open heart. And her prayer for us today is, may you give and receive the blessings of kindness. May the compassion you show another be a light in your life as well. And the second reading I have, also from Braver Wiser, is by Sue Ferguson, and it's called Helpers, Teachers, Angels. Her quote is from James Hillman. It is impossible to see the angel unless you first have a notion of it. Trust is critical to progress on a spiritual path, but it doesn't come easily for some of us. I learned a little bit about it while I was living in Japan. Returning to Japan from a work trip to the States was often a harrowing 24-hour ordeal. But on this trip, I had missed my usual bus ride from Tokyo to my home, and I needed to take the train. It was almost midnight when I got to Mammoth Shinjuku Station, and the last train was about to leave. Navigating a foreign metro train station can be daunting, but this time my fatigue must have given me a deer in the headlights look because I was gazing at that confusing train board, and a man came up to me and asked in perfect English where I was going. When I told him that I needed the Odakayu line, he immediately grabbed my rather large suitcase and began heading off into the depths of the station. Was this a good idea? I wondered, can I trust him? In my exhaustion, I followed the stranger to the correct train, where he rushed forward without me. Oh, I've lost my suitcase for sure, I thought to myself, but I kept going, and I realized he had rushed in order to secure a seat for me and place my suitcase on that practically full last train. With a slight bow, he backed off the train, and that was the last I saw of him. His act of kindness and compassion left a lasting impression on me. To this day, I think of that stranger as an angel, effortlessly moving me along the path I needed to follow at a time when I might not have been able to do it for myself. The memory reminds me that if I'm not cultivating an open heart and watching for the helpers, the teachers, the angels, I may miss them when I need them the most. And her prayer for us is, Spirit of life, keep my heart open to the help I am offered and move me to become the angel that someone else might need. So we're going to sing hymn number 128, For All That Is Our Life. Okay, so we're up to number 5. Thanks for sticking with me. This is My Little Pony, Friendship with Magic, number 5, kindness. It's the penultimate My Little Pony service. Today's focus is soft-hearted and soft-spoken Fluttershy, and our second Unitarian Universalist principle is justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, or pony relations, the pony. Now, I'm going to flip things around a bit. I know that usually I start by talking about My Little Pony, the show, and then I talk about the principle and what it means. Today, I'm going to flip around and we're going to talk about justice, equity, and compassion first. So I may be going out on a limb here, but I feel like justice and equity and compassion are kind of a 3-legged stool. You try to take one out and the whole thing collapses. So like if our communities are unjust and we're not treating each other equally, then there are some people, those like us, who we offer compassion, and there are some who we consider other in some way, who are too different for us to understand their suffering. And when our communities are unequal, we're not able to treat others with compassion. So there are some people who are afforded just treatment, and there are others whose differences shut them off from the ability to pursue justice. When our communities are uncompassionate, then our justice is applied unevenly. And there are some people who, to misquote Orwell's Animal Farm, are more equal than others. So to talk about one aspect of our second principle touches on all 3. And because kindness is most closely associated with compassion, I'm going to focus on compassion. So our 2 readings today, well, they talk about compassion from 2 different perspectives. We think of acts of kindness as going out and acting out kindness. But sometimes we're the person who's struggling and we're accepting kindness. And we have to be open to being on either side of that equation. We have to be open to kindness from other people. We have to trust that they are intending to help us. Or we have to reach out to be that person offering the help. And we have to trust that that person will accept our assistance and needs our assistance. Trust is a 2-way street. Right now, I'm thinking of GoFundMe. And you know how lots of people reach out on GoFundMe and they help other people just in small ways with small donations. And then every once in a while, you'll hear about a GoFundMe campaign that was a lie. And then you're thinking, oh, well, the next time, will I trust that GoFundMe? Like, how closely do I need to vet it? Or somebody, I've heard about this scam where people like ask to borrow your phone because their car broke down and so they'll be on the side of the road with their hood up. And then instead of calling AAA, or maybe in addition to calling AAA, they'll steal your Venmo account. And, you know, when you're reaching out to help somebody, you have to trust that they're not going to take advantage of your kindness. But on the other hand, people who are reaching out for help, they can be taken advantage of. I mean, everyone has heard stories of somebody who looks for credit counseling and then is instead like pulled into a loan shark situation, or people who are asking for a ride on the side of the road and they get pulled into a situation no one should ever be pulled into. There are no end of ways that we can prey upon one another when we're trying to spread compassion. And if that's the case, if we always have to be aware like that, why would anyone ever try to be compassionate? So I read this article that I didn't write down in here and totally should have, because now I'm like, no, this really has to go in here next. There was this article that was talking about how we have 2 kinds of parts of our brain. We have the old part of our brain and we have the new part of our brain. And it was written in terms, like normally I'd be like, oh yeah, the anterior cingulate. But no, it was written in terms of like just your lizard brain and your human brain. That's how they wrote the terms. And what it was talking about was your lizard brain is that brain that like tells the zebra to run from a lion. And that brain is really, really loud and it's really easy to listen to. But we also have our human brain. That's the big foldy part. That's the part that creates all the wonderful things around us, like electricity and communities and compassion, and allows us to care for one another. And sometimes our brain tricks us into thinking with that lizard brain instead of the big, beautiful human part of the brain that tells us how to be kind. So why would anyone be kind? Well, writing for greater good, Dasher Keltner, a professor of psychology at UC Berkeley, and actually he's the founder of Greater Good, which is, I see a lot of nods. It's out of UC Berkeley, and they study like ways to spread goodness in the world. Dasher Keltner says that even compassion, that concern we feel for another being's welfare, used to be treated with derision. Like there was a whole theory of psychology that said that, you know, there isn't even anything called altruism. Like Kant saw it as a weak and misguided sentiment. He said such benevolence is called soft-heartedness and should not occur at all among human beings. Many question whether true compassion exists at all or whether it's inherently motivated by self-interest. Well, a lot of people went and studied that because they thought, well, I bet we can prove it one way or the other. And Keltner goes on and describes a number of studies that show that compassion that's not inherently motivated by self-interest is an inborn trait amongst humans. It's actually an inborn trait amongst all sorts of animals. In fact, they even did this study with bees, where they taught bees how to like push against a little, like they go down a chute and they push against this little door. And if they push against the door, it'll open up and it'll give them some nectar. Well, if they taught the bees to do it, bees would tell other bees how to do it. And instead of just like going down and getting the nectar for themselves, they would turn around and fly back to their friend who got lost and then guide their friend back so they can push through the wall together and get the nectar together. Isn't that amazing? Compassion is everywhere. So Keltner references a study by James Reiling and Gregory Burns at Emory University that shows that when we help others, the reward centers in our brain, the caudate nucleus and the anterior cingulate, they light up, they produce dopamine, they produce all those feel-good chemicals. So Dasher Keltner also has this podcast, and it's called The Happiness Project. And in this particular episode of The Happiness Project, he interviewed an improv performer named Dana Merwin. And she was doing this little exercise that actually I put it in your order of service if you want to do it when you get home, where for one whole week, she would write down 3 nice things that she wanted to do the next day. Just 3 altruistic, kind things she wanted to do for somebody the next day. And then the next day she would go to sleep, and the next day she would get up and she would try to do those things. And she said that it was really, really hard. And it felt like homework. And like she was traveling when she did this, she was like going back and forth to a retreat, and then she had shows, and she would get like halfway through her day and think, I didn't do anything hard yet. And she said that it just made it really difficult to do the practice. And so instead of really focusing on fulfilling the exact letter of what was in the practice, she decided to just focus on remembering to be kind, being in the moment and remembering to be kind. And what she said was that one of the days that she was on the camping retreat, well, she went out on that last day. And you know how when you're leaving someplace, you all say, oh, bye, this was great, have fun, I'll see you next time. Well, there was one person there who really, she felt like really lit up the place and really made the experience of this trip so much better for her. So instead of just being like, oh, bye, see you next time, she reached out and she said that, like, she gave the person's name, and she said, you really made this trip wonderful for me. Your energy was so bright and beautiful, and this was such a good experience because you were here. And she felt really nice to have said that, and he was really, really touched to have received that compliment. And, you know, it felt good to share, she said. Keltner chimed in with, there's a study from Chicago showing that we underestimate how much our acts of kindness impact other people's well-being. Well, Merwin also shared about calling her great aunt. And she was very reluctant to call her great aunt. It had been on her, let's do this kind of thing for all 7 days, and she finally did it on the 7th day. Well, the reason she'd been putting off calling her great aunt is that she had just lost her other great aunt. So it was, her mom was one of 3 sisters, and, or her grandmother, sorry, was one, no, her mom, 1, 2, 3, yes. Sorry, my kids have a great aunt too, so I'm trying to figure out where exactly that. But her mom was grandmother was one of 3 sisters, and, her mother had passed away, but her other 2 sisters were still going strong, and they would talk to each other every single day. Well, just before this trip, her other great aunt had passed away. And she knew that it was gonna be really emotional to call her great aunt. And she'd been putting off doing it because it just felt so hard. It felt hard and awkward, and she didn't know what to say. Even though they both were missing the same person, it's hard to reach out when you don't know what to do or say. Well, she did make the call. She talked to her great aunt, and they talked for a really long time. And she ended up giving her great aunt her phone number and an open invitation to call, because, you know, she and her 2 other great aunts would talk every day. And she said, you know, anytime that you would normally have called my other great aunt, why don't you call me? And she said 2 things about this experience. She said, sometimes it takes a lot of energy to do something, but in the end, it's not hard. Like, I have this yoga app that says the hardest thing is pushing start. And that's totally true. The hardest thing to do is to pick up the phone. And once you pick up the phone, it just feels natural from there. And the other thing she said is that it really feels good to make other people feel good. Charles-Mowrer, Mackesy, I misspelled that. I'm just gonna fix it because otherwise I will forget. In his beautiful book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, if you guys have ever seen it, it's like this beautifully illustrated book, and it looks really long, and then you open it up and it's only got like 2 sentences on each page, because the rest of the page are these like line and pencil drawings with watercolor. But one of the things he says is, nothing beats kindness. It sits quietly beyond all things. So kindness is the quality that Faust chose for the character of Fluttershy, a yellow Pegasus pony with pink hair and a soft voice. And as we all are aware, I'm not gonna recap what My Little Pony is, because we've all been here for the last 4 months. But I especially love Fluttershy. She is closest to my heart because she's quiet, she loves animals, she loves music, and she has a definite story arc and character development as the show goes on. I mean, they all do, but hers is like something that I struggle with, and I really recognize myself in her, even though most people don't think of me as being like super, super shy. Yeah. Fluttershy hides behind her hair, which I can't do because my hair, if I let it down, it's like this thing. So in the very beginning of the show, in the first episode, Fluttershy is hiding behind her hair, and she can barely say hello to Twilight Sparkle because she's so intimidated by new people. And I empathize with that. And Fluttershy, the reason that she ends up talking to Twilight Sparkle is because she loves animals. And she sees Spike and she's like, oh my gosh, you have a baby dragon, oh my gosh. And have you ever been like a little bit standoffish with people, and then you see that they're like walking a dog and you're like, oh. So I recognize that. And she likes animals sometimes more than other ponies because animals showed her compassion when she needed it. So there's an episode that's like pretty far down there that shows how each of the main 6 got their cutie marks. And in that episode, we learned that Fluttershy was being bullied because she couldn't fly. She was not a strong flyer, like through the entire series, she's not a strong flyer. Like every once in a while, she'll fall off of something and then she'll be rescued by somebody, and then she'll be like, oh yeah, I can fly. So in this particular case, she fell from Cloudsdale, which is the Pegasus city in the sky, and she was rescued by a group of butterflies. And this was the first time she had ever been down to Earth, and she saw that Earth was so beautiful, and there were butterflies, and there were animals, and there was grass and trees, and she realizes that this is where she belongs. Now, I personally feel that being able to communicate with non-ponies makes her more open to other points of view and more able to empathize with those who are different from her. Now, Fluttershy is always depicted as sweet, but I argue that she starts the series as being a nice pony, and she ends the series by being a kind pony. And now I said that to my daughter the other day, and she was like, I hate to break it to you, Mom, but nice and kind are synonyms. And then I said to her, well, okay, which one is bigger, honey? Giant or gigantic? Because, you know, every word has a shade of meaning. And so I do see shades of meaning between those two things. Fluttershy starts out as nice. She's cooperative, she's helpful, she thinks about the needs of others. And, you know, okay, so those can be either nice or kind. But what is just nice? Well, being nice is like, you don't want to make waves, even though you know you're right. For example, the episode Bats, which I will not sing that song for you, even though I know that like some of you are going, oh, I hear it now. Thanks for mentioning it. So that song, the episode Bats that we talked about last service with Applejack, Fluttershy goes along with Applejack and tries to change the minds of the bats and like change their behavior, even though she has really big concerns about whether it's an ethical thing to do. She has really big concerns about the environmental impact of, you know, taking a species out of their ecological niche. But she was nice, she likes her friends, she wants to keep her friends, so she helped them. And as we remember, that went poorly. Now, Fluttershy has always had this ability called the stare. She used the stare in that episode. That's why they needed her help. This ability called the stare, where she could look at a creature very intently and just a little bit of disapproval on her face, and that creature would comply with whatever perfectly reasonable request she had. For example, she used the stare on the cockatrice in Staremaster, and she told it to please unpetrify my friend Twilight Sparkle right now. Now, according to Lauren Faust, Fluttershy's stare came from Lauren Faust's mom, who called it, yeah. Now, I have friends with that ability who just call it giving someone the mom eyes. I have often wished for the mom eyes. I don't have them. So I feel like kindness involves the ability to share hard or embarrassing truths, as opposed to niceness, which is we're just gonna do what people ask. We can do this. But kindness means sometimes you have to say no to things that compromise your own ethics, or call people out when their behavior breaches their ethics. So Fluttershy uses the stare when she is calling out misbehaving creatures. But she also ends up not using the stare, but she also ends up showing kindness in the episode It Ain't Easy Being Breezies. And this is like the big cycle episode where she gets her like token, which some of you are like, I've never watched it. What are you talking about token? Never mind, doesn't matter. But the Breezies are these tiny winged ponies that have to migrate from some unspecified place, probably the Everfree Forest, to their little portal to get them back to Breezy World. And they are very small and they have to be guided by a breeze and they get blown off course. And some of them get really injured and flustered. And so Fluttershy, being nice and sweet, says, oh, you can stay with me and recover. So The recovered breezies don't want to leave Fluttershy's cottage. And she's nice, she's gonna keep being their perfect hostess. And she keeps being nice. And then there's one breezy who's like, we really gotta go, we're gonna miss it. We gotta go. Actually, that particular breezy is voiced by Justin Bieber, in case anybody's curious. And finally, Fluttershy has to boot them out of her cottage, so that they won't miss their chance to go home. And that's when she learns that the kind thing to do, make sure the breezes get home, is not the nice thing to do, which would be to let them stay. Kindness and niceness aren't always aligned. And that's a really hard border to find for anyone. I'm still struggling with that. Kim Scott's management book, Radical Candor. It's a really good management book, and I don't even like management books, but I read it and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. So she talks about this graph with 4 quadrants. The x-axis is challenging people directly. So either, I'm gonna do this from my side because but you guys would see it flipped around. But if you're going one way, you're challenging people directly, and if you go the other way, you're just letting them do whatever they want. And whether it's good or bad, and then the x-axis is caring, or the y-axis is caring personally. So either you're caring for people or you're not. And you know, Fluttershy is always on the caring side of the axis, right? She always cares about people. But as the show progresses, she goes from being somebody who's more willing to stay in the, what do they call it? Ruinous empathy quarter. So where you're empathic to the point where people can be harmed by your empathy. She is more likely to be in that section than the radical candor section, which is, I care about you, which is why I'm going to tell you this. And you know, I think of it this way. Have you ever like seen somebody doing something in public and you're like, oh, that's oops, don't do that. Or somebody like who even has something really small, like they've got broccoli in their teeth. Now, if you are ruthlessly empathic, oh, they must feel so bad, I shouldn't tell them about it because it may embarrass them. But if you're directly candid, like direct candor would be, hey, you got something in your teeth, here's a toothbrush. Which one would you prefer? Right? As a recipient, you'd be like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, but thank goodness someone told me. So justice, equity, and compassion are all words that have something in common with kindness. Joyce Polly says in hymn number 1008, when we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. And that's what candor is about. That's what kindness is about. That's what compassion is about. It's about seeing a reflection of your own self in someone else. And you trust yourself usually, right? So if you can trust yourself and be empathic towards yourself, then you can share that empathy with others. Just like the person who got lost in the train station or the person who got lost in an unfamiliar town. Sometimes we have to reach out to others and let others reach out to us. Charles Maxey wrote these words on self-compassion in his book. He said, we often wait for kindness, but being kind to yourself can start now. So I hope you can carry his words with you this week, and I hope you can try just sharing a little bit of kindness every day this week to see how it works out. Maybe it'll make your mood a little better and release all that good oxytocin and dopamine. So be it. So as a kindness exercise, we're going to do hymn number 1031. It's filled with love and kindness. And we sing it 3 times through. I do have the words up there, but the way we sing it is really easy. The words are, may I be filled with love and kindness. And then the second time, you're gonna replace all those I's with you. And the third time through, all of those U's with me. Because it's that broadening circle of compassion. You start with compassion for yourself, then compassion with people around you, and then compassion for the world. join me in reading out child's extinguishing words? The extinguished is child's flame, but not the light of wisdom, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our heart and in our lives until we are together again. And I'd like to close today's service with words by Kevin Tarsa. Kevin Tarsa added this to Worship Web, and he'd like you to know that this prayer, which is a recast, it's called Psalm 23, recast in the language of love. He wrote it for the 2017 GA Memorial Service in honor of the former UUA moderator, Jim Key. Psalm 23 for this moment. May I remember in this tender moment that love is my God, always, shepherding me towards ways of openness and compassion. I have what I need, really, with love by my side, above me, below me, in front of me, behind me, inside every cell, love infused everywhere. Just when the weight of the world I inhabit threatens to drop me in place and press my hope down into the ground beneath me, love invites me to rest for a gentle while and leaves the center of my soul to be quiet, still restoring waters nearby that somehow I had not noticed. And so love quietly sets me once again on its tender and demanding path. Even when walls close around me and the cries of death echo through untold corners, gripping my heart with fear and sadness, I know that all will be well, that I will be well. When love whispers near to me, glints at the corner of my eye, and rests with gentle and persistent invitation upon my shoulders. Yes, love blesses me, even as the sources and symbols of my pain look on. Love blesses me from its infinite well, and I turn and notice that goodness and kindness and grace follow me everywhere I go. I live in a house of love, love that will not let me go. I live in a house of love, and I always will. Amen, shalom, salam, blessed be. And please join me in listening to the postlude. It's from my little one.